Hi there, I'm Ben and welcome to the second part of my Ghost Recon Breakpoint Beginner's Guide. The link to the first part will be in the description. In the first part I go through the fundamentals of the game like the map, the loot system, the classes and leveling. In this video I'm going to explain the gameplay mechanics of the game, things like stealth, stamina, drones and just general gunplay. For a full list of topics covered in this video, plus timestamps, please check the description. Before I start, I'd like to thank Ubisoft again for reaching out to me and allowing me full access to the game before launch. You will be able to find this video and a selection of my other videos on the game plan part of their website. The link for that will also be in the description. So let's start at the beginning, as this will be the first option that you choose, the difficulty. There are four: Arcade, Regular, Advanced and Extreme. The main differences between them is how quickly enemies will spot you, how much damage you'll take and how long before your health regenerates. I would imagine that most people will play on either Regular or Advanced. Arcade is too easy and Extreme is, well, pretty extreme. The health regen feels like it takes forever to start on Extreme and 3 or 4 shots and you're dead. I'm doing a series of videos where I play the game on Extreme, so check them out if you want an example of it. Or, if you want to check it out for yourself, the difficulty can be changed at any time in the settings menu. Stealth is very important in this game, especially on the higher difficulties. Ghost Recon Breakpoint is a tactical shooter, so running and gunning is never really an option. If you run into an enemy base unprepared, even on the lowest difficulty, you're gonna die pretty quickly. For that reason, stealthily skirting around enemy bases and picking off all the major threats first is the best thing to do. To reduce the chances of getting spotted, you have the usual options here: crouch and prone. Breakpoint also has what I like to call super prone. It's actually called prone camo. When you're prone, you're able to cover yourself in mud or snow and make yourself practically invisible. Now you can't move once you've done this, but what you can do is still use your gun and silently pick enemies off. Provided you're using a silencer, obviously. The enemies will go into high alert, but they'll have no idea where you are. Eventually they will start walking towards you, and only when they get a few feet away will they actually notice you. To help you be as stealthy as possible, it is also best to recon a base to see what you're up against. The best way to do this is with your very own handy little drone. Press up on the D-pad and you'll deploy said drone. The controls to fly it are exactly the same as a helicopter. It can move around enemies without getting spotted, and you have to literally bump into them before they'll notice it. Aim at an enemy with the drone and they'll get marked on your map, and a little pop-up will appear showing their level and what type of soldier they are. Drones can also be used to discover locations around the map. Just point them towards a question mark and it will be revealed. Once you're done with the drone, you can either press up on the D-pad again or fly into an enemy and cause a distraction. You will have to wait until you can deploy another drone. You'll see a charge bar on the left side of your screen. Being stealthy in Breakpoint is actually very easy and makes you feel like a total badass when you're able to sneak around and eliminate an entire squad of enemies. Enemies will kind of appear on your map if you haven't tagged them. They'll appear as like red splodges. This is a rough estimate of where the enemy is. Once you do tag them by looking down your sights at them, amongst other ways, they will appear as a little arrow. White for unalerted, yellow for suspicious, orange for actively looking for you, and red when they've spotted you. There is the standard warning system for an enemy fully spots you, with a bar that fills up appearing on your screen. Move out of sight to break this bar before it fills up and you'll be fine. Let an enemy spot you though and all hell will break loose. As easy as it is to be stealthy in Breakpoint, it's equally as difficult to lose your wanted status, for lack of a better phrase. The outer edge of your minimap will turn red and all enemies in the vicinity will come after you. You have two options here: run away and try and hide, again using super prone, or kill every mother effing last one of them. I like to choose the latter, and that brings me nicely onto the combat in the game. The first thing I'll mention about the combat is to make friends with R1, right bumper or whatever the equivalent key is on the PC. This switches the shoulder you'll look over in third person mode. Obviously you can do this in every other third person game, but in Breakpoint I found myself having to do it constantly. It's such a small thing, but it allows you a better view of your surroundings. This is especially important if for some reason you like your aiming mode to be set to over the shoulder. Don't do that, by the way. As a sniper, one of the most important combat mechanics for me was the breath holding one. If you half press L2 or LT, your character will hold their breath and this will in turn steady your aim. This mechanic is not just limited to sniper rifles, it actually works for any weapon, even pistols. So how do the guns feel in Breakpoint? Well, great. You can tell a lot of effort has gone into making the guns all feel different and behave like they should. I think. I've only ever fired an M4 and an MP5 in real life. But yes, guns are stable when fired semi-automatically, but hold down the trigger and you'll be aiming at the sky in no time. The guns all feel very different, and because there are so many of them in the game and you'll be swapping them all of the time, it can feel a bit jarring. My advice would be to find a gun or at least a style of weapon you like and stick to it. I personally went for DMRs as they give you that range but also speed as well. Some sniper rifles just felt too slow. If you're going for headshots, power isn't necessary anyway, but obviously we all have different playstyles. Next up, the cover system. As you will be using it mostly when in a firefight, I thought I'd put it in this section. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it's garbage. It always feels like you're fighting against the game when trying to take cover. It will face you one way, so you try and switch and you won't stick to the cover and you'll end up standing up in front of an enemy. My advice is don't rely on it. It can work when peeking around corners, but even then you can sometimes end up aiming at the wall instead of the enemy. Stay close to cover, but don't stick to it, if that makes sense. The last thing I will just mention while in the combat section, because the benefits of it are appreciated most when in a firefight or just after, is that you don't need to pick items up. Ammo, weapons, gear, health items and even crafting materials are all hoovered up as you move around. Obviously this isn't realistic, but it's much appreciated. It's not like the items float towards you or anything, your character does still do a little animation as you pick them up. You just don't have to spend half of your time looking at the floor looking for a button prompt. Okay, so if you do decide to run away instead of stand and fight, you're going to need to know about the stamina bar. The stamina bar obviously pertains to your characters exerting themselves. So running, climbing, well not climbing, let's call it scrambling up steep slopes, and descending said steep slopes, also known as falling without style, do any of these and your stamina bar will deplete. Realistically, it will deplete faster when you're climbing as opposed to running, or even faster still when descending a hill. When it does deplete, the bar will turn red and you'll stop what you're doing. If you're running, you'll start walking. If you're climbing down a hill, you'll hilariously and frustratingly go tumbling down. Now when your stamina bar does deplete and turn red, it will do a little bit of damage to it. This will shorten your bar so it can't recharge fully. This will keep accumulating if you keep doing it. To get rid of this effect, all you need to do is drink some water from your canteen. To fill your canteen up, just go to the nearest body of water. The health bar in Breakpoint works in pretty much the same way, except it's broken down into 3 separate bars. Take damage and your health bar will regenerate after a while. How long that while is depends on the difficulty you're on. Take too much damage and the first bar will become red and unusable, effectively cutting your life pool by a third. The same will happen with the second bar too. There are a couple of ways you can fix this. Firstly, the extremely slow but infinite way, by applying a bandage. This is literally the first thing you do in the game. The second way is with a syringe. You can either find these or craft these at a bivouac. Using one of these is much quicker and will fully restore your health. Lastly in this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the enemies. There aren't too many enemy types, but what do you expect? It's a semi-realistic military shooter. You can only do soldiers a few ways. The soldiers come in various forms: shotgunners, rocket launchers, snipers, drone pilots, radio engineers and heavies. You'll get to recognise them as you play. You can tell which one is which by the little symbol above the head once you've tagged them. You also have the Wolves, which are John Bernthal's elite crew. These guys are as deadly and relentless as you are. There are a couple of drone types: an alarm drone that alerts everyone to where you are, and a weaponised drone that will buzz around firing its irritating little machine guns at you. Lastly, you have a couple of tank-like enemies, smaller ones and large ones called behemoths. Breakpoint doesn't have bullet sponge enemies, thankfully, but behemoths come pretty close. But it does kind of make sense. If you're shooting a tank with a sniper rifle, it's going to take a while. And that's it. Between these two videos, I think I've pretty much covered everything you need to know to get you started. There are some things I haven't talked about, obviously, like PvP. I don't think that really comes under a beginner's guide, as it's something you'll probably want to do later on once you're used to the game and have a decent level and equipment. Right, help me out by doing YouTube things, liking, subscribing, sharing, or don't, whatever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.